morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on another great episode of Elevating Women Entrepreneur. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about failure or opportunity. When is a failure or is it an opportunity? I am going to be sharing some of my thoughts behind it. And then my co-hosts will be also giving their opinion and their point of view on this topic. So it is a chance to reevaluate and to gather feedback. Think of failure as another shot to try again. One of my best quotes is from Thomas Edison that's once said, I have not failed. I found 10,000 ways that won't work. What does that mean? Well, sometimes we should take the times that sometimes we have like failures as an opportunity. What if we change our attitude towards a failure? What can we learn from it? Why did we fail? Why do we feel like failure is not an opportunity? Another thing is that what important elements do we actually take from it? The other thing that I wanted to analyze is that we are born, and when we are born, we don't know how to walk, we don't know how to crawl, we don't know how to ride a bike. We expect our parents to go ahead and show us. But how many times do we get on a bike and we fail at actually learning, and we fall and we get up and we try again? But when we're adults, we take that as a failure. Why, as an adult, we can't take sometimes some of our failures and actually take it as an opportunity to get stronger, to use that as an opportunity to grow at something? So today we have Angie, Wendy, and Michelle that are going to be giving us their opinions and their thoughts on this.
I'll start. If I thought what you said about fear is always something that I think about because we're only born with two fears, like the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. So everything else we learn. And that's really telling because I think we're taught even when we're young to fear failure. But before, when you're talking about like when we start to walk, we fall down. If anyone were to watch us, it's not like our parents are going, give it up, you ain't never gonna walk. They just keep saying, come on, keep going, keep going. They know eventually that you're going to, figure it out. So why is it so different with everything else? Why is it, in business, or if we try something, we're so afraid of failing. And is it really the fear of failing, or is it the fear of being seen, right? You don't want, you're worried about what people think or what they're going to see if you fail. I think is a very real fear that we're taught. Fear of failing, fear of, what people think, or just the fear of being seen, either being seen in a good way and also being seen in a bad way. And knowing that those are all fears that we can control, it's not anything that's natural or that we're born with, I think will help us to overcome and see the fear of failure differently, is really as an opportunity to learn something.
And I think it's a great points. And I think one thing that I go back to and think of is, what is the definition of failure, right? And it says the definition of failure is a lack of success. But then we have to also say, what is success? So I think one thing to always analyze as a person is really have deep down conversations with ourselves. Like, what do I see as my success? Is my success fully driven by a profit margin? Is my success only focused on one thing and not focused on the many things that make up my life? So I know we talk in here, obviously we're talking about business, but I think that when you well round what success is to not just what you're getting out of the business, but also how that is impacting your personal life, your personal balance, I think that's something to also take into consideration, learn to appreciate, so that then what failure really means to you, it's not the same as what other people would see. Other people may notice or see the times that you fall, the times that maybe you're not at the position that you had anticipated yourself to be at. But in the background, you may actually have more of a balance with your family. You may have time with your kids. you have to really consider that. And so I think we tend to focus failure on what other people think of us, what other people see. And that is not what we need to consider failure for ourselves. We need to kind of analyze and go back to the beginning and say, okay, if I am able to spend time with my family, if I am able to have a flexibility that I never had before, and look at, I was telling someone the other day, the whole saying of looking at the glass not half empty but half full. That is a really, I think, got good guidance on our lives to be able to stop nitpicking on the things that may appear like a failure to other people. Because even coming to the podcast, I was thinking, I was like, what really have I seen in my life as a failure? And I've seen things in my life that maybe were not exactly the way that I wanted it to be, but I don't get bogged down with it as a failure per se, even though humanly we do feel that way. Because then I start looking at the good things, and then it completely just negates the thought of failure or that fear. And I was looking at, if you've read the book Start With Why, they give a lot of like different examples of that. And also, there's a book called Soar, and in that book, it talks about, and they both talk about the Wright brothers, how the Wright brothers are went through so many different failures to be able to get to the where they were at, but they had not gone through that, like Michelle said. If they had not gone through those, then they would have never known what exactly needed to be fixed in order to make sure that that plane flew the way that it was supposed to or meant to. So I think that's my thoughts on that piece.
I think just one more thought is as we think about what the definition of failure, we also have to and understand success and ask what success means to us. We also have to understand that you can't have success without failure. So understanding that failure is part of that process for you to get to that point of success. Whether it's as, in business, as a parent, and even, beyond that, there's always a learning process that takes place because we keep changing as humans, as people, as entrepreneurs, we keep growing and developing. So things not going our way always is just part of, that process of helping us continue to develop.
So instead of throwing in the towel and saying, I'm not good for that, we can go ahead and take that failure, take it into opportunity of learning so we can grow personally. We can go ahead and do the next step or whatever next thing that we want to succeed in. We can go ahead and tweak it for a better outcome. I think if we go ahead and our attitude has a lot to do with it when it comes to, instead of asking, why did I fail, and just concentrate on it's an actual negative, on just failure, why, instead of thinking about that, it's to go ahead and actually take it and make it truly a passion to understand that that failure is an opportunity, like a stepping stone for your next level. So one of the things that I had shared with the ladies before was that I had spoken to one of my cousins, and she wants to go into the medical field. And I was having a conversation, and she has already chosen 3 of the universities. For her top university, her top college, she already in her mind, she says, well, I'm not going to be able to get into that college because they have very high standards on who they're going to be choosing for that program, which is, Hopkins. So to me, I went ahead and I was like, wait a minute, you're already setting yourself for failure. Maybe, and sometimes even as individuals, we feel we've already set up ourselves for failure. We don't want to ask other people because we don't want them to think that we're a failure, right? But if you really think about it, if she was to go and take an extra step and maybe go and talk to people that have been through the program or get a mentor that would actually help her, Sometimes we have to open ourselves that way to make sure that we understand that, there is a way to not look at things a failure. So, what are your thoughts behind, like, when we go ahead and we take a failure and opportunity, what elements can we take away from that? And when do we stop, think, analyze, and reach out to somebody and don't feel that we have failed because we're reaching out to somebody for help?
I think the importance of that's the importance, I think, of a community, having a community like EWE and other like-minded entrepreneurs, because some people, if you were to tell them, or what your failure was, like, oh, this, I started doing this and I'm not making any money right now, whatever, if they're coming from a different mindset, which most people are, because not everybody's, of the entrepreneur mindset. And the key is that security and safety is an illusion, right? I mean, there is no security, there is no safety. So most people spend their lives trying to play it safe, right, and not take any risks. So if it's very important, the importance of community, and I think this is very important for entrepreneurs, because we're always trying to do things on our own, but that's the importance of having a like-minded group, I think, to talk to your failures or things about, because they're going to help you get through them. They're going to help you see, okay, that means you have to change and pivot, and now you can do this, or what can you do differently. But they're going to help you get past that, and not kind of discourage you, or continue to make you focus on the problem and say, well, maybe you need to go back to your job. I remember there's a certain point in my business where I just would not tell my mom what was going on, with how things were going, or what my revenue was for that month, because she was getting really worried. She was way more worried than I was, but and I think she thought she was being helpful by telling me to go get a job.
I think there's a couple of just thoughts that come to mind, right? So the first thing is that, as you know, I know we're all entrepreneurs and we're women. So, there's already these learned habits, these learned things, behaviors that are just part of who we are today. Today, I challenge myself to stop thinking or even using the word failure, in my day-to-day vocabulary, because failure, comes with some level of negativity that is hard to process. I think even just, on our own, it's not a word that we like to hear. So instead of using failure, maybe using opportunity, as we all have, discussed. So this is just another learning opportunity. Now, as far as, those of us that now are able to impact the upbringing of the next generation, our kiddos, those are things that we want to start to incorporate in how we teach them. A story that comes to mind is a few months ago, my little one, I have a 7-year-old, and she was finally ready to let go of the training wheels. So, I took the task to, hold her, and, she's the baby. So I'm like holding on to her. I almost wanted to like hug her throughout, every little stride. But as she was, pedaling away and I was holding her, I kept telling her, she said, Mommy, she said, I'm going to get this. I said, yes. I said, because practice makes perfect. And then that was a big aha moment for me. As soon as that word left my mouth, I immediately thought about the weight that I was, putting on her shoulders. Because no, practice should not make perfect. There's no such thing as perfection, right? And we should be striving to keep finding ways to be better, to develop, to grow, to find that better version of ourselves every day. But that process should never stop. So with that being said, I had to retract and say, you know what, Mommy made a mistake. It's really not practice makes perfect. It's practice makes you better. And those are the things, though, that we need to catch ourselves on, because that's now the new generation, right? That'll be a future generation. And hopefully it'll take some weight off their shoulders as it relates to understanding that, things not going our way are just part of learning life and becoming better.
I agree. So, um, kind of touching back on some points that were said between Michelle and Angie, and like one thing that I was taught from the beginning of my entrepreneur life is make sure you surround yourself with the correct people, people that are going to be like-minded, people that are going to be thinking of success in the way that an entrepreneur sees it. Because you have a dream. An entrepreneur usually, you have a dream and you have a goal where you want to get to, and that is what drives your passion to it. But in the same time, as an entrepreneur, you have to be ready to have some setbacks. You have to be prepared to see that not everything is going to work out perfectly. And when you come in as an entrepreneur thinking, oh, it's going to be straight road, then you are going to probably have some really depressing nights. So um, you kind of, and you learn it along the way, because I think we all kind of started probably thinking, okay, we're going to do this, it's going to be exactly this way, and then you realize, no, it's not like that. So having people that been through it, having people that have gone through the same shoes of, maybe not, we not everyone gets a big, inheritance, and here's the business, and the business is started, and everything in this business is already ready for you to run it. That's not the case. If you're starting from the beginning, you learn. So I think that that having that community is a great thing. And then I also, thinking back on like my career, I the beginning of my career is very much a start from failure. I mean, I did not, I'm a CPA, I'm an accountant, but I did not see myself, one, as an accountant at first. Two, I did not see myself as owning a business when I was in school. When I was in school, I was like, I'm going to do international business, I'm going to travel the world. And that was what I wanted to do. And well, I ended up having a child when I was 19. So for me, at first, that was like a big all punch in the face. Obviously, I got myself in that. So it's not like someone did it to me. I did it to myself. But it could have helped me back. Like at that point, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do now? I can't travel. That set the stage for me to be able to not give up. And thankfully for obviously people around you, my family, to push and say, hey, you can still do this. You just have to pivot, make a change. What else? And I was in college at the time, and I had a professor that, if I look back, he really was a motivator. And he said, Wendy, you're really good at this. You're really good at numbers. You're really good at this. And I was still doubting it. Um, and I went, but I went, the thing is, I didn't stop. I didn't say, okay, my life is over now. That I messed it up. I said, no, I'm going to continue. And with the help of those people around me, I switched what I was going to do pretty quickly. I made sure that I focused and I put a goal, like, this is what we're going to do next. And then from that time on, I think it's just been kind of like stepping stones and levels to where, I work in corporate. And then I was like, okay, this is great. You're learning and you have your failures in that as well, leading me to something that I didn't even realize that was there. Because that's the thing. Sometimes we are so set in our ways that we miss the opportunity because we keep on going back to the same thing that we thought we wanted to do. Um, but we're not listening to that voice, if you're a believer, that God telling you, hey, this is what I want you to do instead. But it's not a failure. It's just kind of that little bit of a nudge hitting you to, like, maybe instead of going left, go right. you know, don't think that it's just a straight road. You're going to make changes in between. And um, I think that's the beauty of what's really failure, supposedly. Like Angie said, don't use that word, because it's like, what's the beauty of those moments of learning experience to get us to where we're meant to be?
I thought it was interesting when he said she had a teacher that was encouraging her that she was good at something. My teachers were telling me the opposite. They were like, suck at engineering, suck at electronics. And I was trying to be a comp sci major at the time, and they're just like, yeah, you're not. doing the best at this. And it's not what I wanted to hear at the time, but it was a good thing that they told me, because it helped me find my path of where I needed to go. That was not for me, even though that was what I had in my head that I was supposed to go do. And, then I started doing law, and it was so easy for me, and came so naturally. And, now here I am. So sometimes, and that, at the time I considered it a failure, because I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a comp sci major. I'm going to be a programmer. And, and I had to, go away from that, because I didn't want to be a terrible programmer. Nobody wants the doctor who got C's, right? So I wanted to do something that I could be good at. So at first, for a long time, I saw that as a failure. But, now looking back and realizing, that was the best thing they could have ever done, was to tell me that, so that I could, go to where I needed to be.
So I want to leave you with this. I want to let you know that sometimes fear of failure freezes people. And that's when you have to surround yourself with like-minded people, like-minded women that understand what your vision is going to be. Dream like a child, dream big to overcome that fear. Have that passion. If your passion is big, then continue to dream that big, because that's one of the things that our faith tells us. We are to dream big like a child. The other thing is that I'm going to also share is Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for life that is less than the one you are living. Okay. And the other one also, Thomas Edison, there's a way to do it better. We need to find it. And the way we find it is by asking questions, by surrounding yourself with positive people, like-minded. Don't be afraid, because then you're feeding into fear. You're feeding into that failure. You're not seeing that opportunity that is there for you.
Our EWE ladies, join us for our upcoming meeting. We are continuing to learn about generating more business, growing our business, especially in the midst of a pandemic, which we've all experienced. So we have a very special presenter who's also a business strategist. Make sure you register. It's a WebEx meeting, so join us wearing your pajamas. We don't care. But we'll see you on Tuesday, the 18th at 8:30. So 8:30 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right.